I'm Artifacts of Mars. And what I wanted to discuss today briefly is some misconceptions that Christians have about the Bible. Boy, I'm going to get in trouble on this one. One thing that people don't seem to understand is about Satan. If you look in the Bible, he's repeatedly described as a great dragon, serpent, so on and so forth. In Revelations, it says that Satan was cast down to the earth after a war in heaven, which is what my series, Aliens of the Bible, is starting out with, is with war in heaven, and then I'll get to all the biblical events. After I do the Garden of Eden story and all that, next thing is flood. At any rate, it clearly calls him again and again dragon, serpent, essentially a lizard. Alright? He's a lizard. You got that? Satan is a lizard, for all intents and purposes. But it gets worse from there. The Christians are not taught this. They're taught that he's a great deceiver, he's father of liars, fine, he's father of liars, but he's a lizard. I didn't say it, the Bible said it. I'm not saying I believe all this. I'm merely talking about what the Bible actually says. And then he turns God's perfect creation. He corrupts them. Well, what does that mean? Well, essentially, even preachers will say it's in our DNA, what they're calling sin. Rebellion against God, whoever God is. Well, I learned something recently, and this is mainstream science I'm about talking about. Something called Triune Brain. So according to mainstream science, our brains are partially reptilian. Some of the lower parts, more primitive parts, are actually reptile-based. That is mainstream science. You can look it up. Triune Brain. So, let's put this together for a minute. Satan gets together. Satan goes and corrupts Adam and Eve. Tricks them into taking some kind of a fruit into their bodies. It's probably impregnated with a virus, would be my guess. And he turns the human race into essentially chimeras. That's what Genesis seems to be talking about. When it says God created the heaven and earth, well, these people back then, when they wrote the Bible, thought the heaven was what they were seeing at night when they looked into the sky. They didn't understand, they didn't have a concept of outer space. You can see in Revelations, once again, there's a great star burning as if it was a lamp falling from heaven. So, heaven is actually, when they're talking about heaven, what they're actually talking about is outer space. You got that? Alright. So if heaven is essentially outer space, what does that make God? Well, I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. But I am going to talk about a couple other things before I go here. I'm going to take the next two incidents. First of all, why would an all-powerful God want some shepherd to go and kill one of his animals and present it to him? Well, we know about the animal mutilation phenomenon. That sounds mighty familiar. It's my hypothesis that the animal mutilation phenomenon is actually one and the same with animal sacrifices that went back then. But today, if you ask some farmer to go and sacrifice a sheep to you're going to be on the end of a double-barreled shotgun. Back then, they thought these were gods. Today, they'd be fired at. So, the animal sacrifice was probably mostly God, in quotes, wanting dead animals for study. Like we see with the animal mutilations today. They take various organs from them and then just leave the carcasses. And it just goes on and on with the alien influence in the Bible. I never understood this stuff, but I'm starting to. And people are understanding more and more about the reptilian influence. You can see the reptile symbols in our society. Like, for instance, you know that little medical symbol you see on every doctor's door, the snake curling around? Well, what is that? Duh! That, ladies and gentlemen, is, the snake. And one of our earliest flags here in the United States, Don't Tread on Me, I guess that was colonies. At any rate, it's got a snake on it. And the dragon is a big thing in many different cultures. You got some god down south, Kukulkan or whatever, reptilian. And the Orientals have their dragon worship. So it's obvious that these symbols are in our society, and I think that subconsciously, even though people don't realize it anymore consciously, we're actually worshiping these reptilian beings. Ooh! Ooh! Can't be. Well, sorry about that. Bullshit. Most definitely can be. We're actually worshiping these reptilian creatures without realizing it. So, a long time ago, Satan, according to the Bible, I'm not saying this is for real, but according to the Bible, Satan was exiled to the earth. He corrupted Adam and Eve with alien DNA. And essentially, the reptiles became our masters. Which means Jesus Christ was sent to free us from the reptilian influence. And I'm not making this stuff up. I'm really talking about what the Bible is saying. The Christians would call it blasphemy because they want you to accept dogma, and I don't accept dogma. I read and think for myself, thank you very much. So let's touch on a couple of other things before I go. Great Flood. Do you really expect me to believe that 8 people could restore the entire ecosystem of this planet, or even protect it? Not going to happen. Don't tell me about magic. That's cop-out. You'll lose me on the conversation right there. There's no magic to it. Maybe there was a guy named Noah who built an ark and took some animals on board. The simple fact of the matter is the Earth system is so complex that it would be far beyond even our technology today. So there had to have been aliens or somebody who restored the ecosystem of the Earth, if you believe that the flood covered the entire Earth. I have my doubts. I think it might have been a local flood, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. There had to have been alien influence. There's no getting around it. If the story of Noah is true. I know they had that movie. I'm not going to waste money on it. Looks interesting, but it's dogma. There had to be alien influence. I don't see how you get around it. Because 8 people simply could not have kept all these critters and insects and whatnot from turning on one another. And, you have tons and tons of food every day, and water, and special needs critters. Don't give me this shit, alright? They had the habitats or something. There had to be alien influence. Now let's go to a couple other ones. Tower of Babel. Says, God came down to see what people were doing. I thought this God was all-knowing. And all-present. Omnipresent. Wrong. Not according to that. He came down to see what tower was that they were building. Gee, that sounds like he came down in a spaceship. And he said nothing to stop them from doing what they want to do. So he confused their tongues, gave them aphasia. Aphasia is where you get your tongue tangled and you cannot speak quite like. It's like that, you lose your ability to speak right. Speak correctly, I should say. So they're stricken with aphasia, essentially. But do you expect me to believe that a tower made of bricks and slime, which is what the Bible says, could ever reach up to heaven? No, it would collapse long before it'd even get up to 500 feet. Even our best skyscrapers can't get anywhere near the edge of the space. Don't give me this stuff. But if there was some kind of technology involved where they not only reached to heaven, but well, they could have, perhaps gone to the stars, maybe a stargate, then I could see it. So God comes down, sees tower, says, "You're not doing this." He gives them aphasia so they can't communicate and finish the project. Unbelievable. And people buy into this stuff without thinking it through. Then you have another one, Jonah and the fish. It doesn't say a whale, it says a fish. So Jonah gets swallowed by a fish and lives for 3 days in his belly or something. Well, I'm very sorry, he would have suffocated very quickly if he'd been in the belly of an actual fish. We're probably talking about a USO, unidentified submerged object. It took him in, rescued him. It's a pity we don't get any detailed descriptions about his stay inside this thing. Can anyone say alien abduction? Well, duh! Then it says he vomited him out on land. This thing vomited Jonah out on land. I have a second life idea planned just for that. Well, it's not hard to imagine. It's the old flying saucer with an abduction beam. Only he's going down, not up. So that's about it for now. You have to understand that these people were talking. These people didn't have a concept of aliens. Though, oddly enough, when Satan said to Eve, "You'll be as gods if you eat fruit," you'll understand the difference between good and evil. You'll be as gods. Duh. What does that mean? How could they know what old Scratch was talking about unless it already met gods? They had gods that came here, only they weren't gods, they were alien beings, and probably interacted with these people for some time. And it said they didn't have sex until after the fall. Or at least they didn't have children until after the fall. But the point is that apparently they interacted with beings from other worlds long before they ever met up with Satan. We don't know how long that was between Adam and Eve's genetic engineered creation and the fall. We don't know how long that was. I'm going to spin that into my stories. But gee whiz, it just goes on and on. There's unbelievable amounts of talk, which sounds like alien influence in the Bible. And that's why I'm going to spin into my stories. Adam and Eve already knew what gods were, or what they thought were gods. They had to have known the concept, or even to know what old Scratch was talking about. Or should I say, the dragon. It's a twisted, confused mess, folks. I'm not trying to blaspheme Christianity. I'm simply trying to explain what some of the events are and trying to get a little common sense going. There had to have been alien influence if you believe the Bible events actually happened. It simply had to be. Either alien influence or the influence of advanced beings that were already on the planet. But the Bible specifically says that Satan, the dragon Satan, was cast down to the earth. And we have all these symbols, all these reptilian symbols in our different societies. It's just so blatantly obvious. Now we have all the so-called conspiracy theorists saying that there's reptilians who are controlling this earth. Well, how much of that is conspiracy theory? Maybe not a lot. I invite you to read the Christian Bible and try to understand what it's actually saying. Forget about the goddamn dogma and just read it. And try to understand what it's actually saying about the alien influence, about what they mean By heaven, they actually mean outer space. You know, the big tower was probably a stargate or something similar. Somebody didn't want somebody going somewhere and doing something. That's about it for today. I gotta go. I'm Artifacts Mars. Thanks for watching.